Welcome to Two Deep Hokies Under the Influence, a Sons of Saturday podcast. I'm your host, Pete B, and I've got Sam Jesse here with me. Sam, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing good, Pete. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Just kind of rushed out of a local meeting to get back in time, but we don't actually have much recruiting news tonight. This is kind of a different one. We've been overwhelmed with recruiting news. We're going to do some other stuff tonight.
Well, I guess you can't get them every week. There's only so many guys that you can recruit. I feel like it will be a bit of a lull until the fall. Like I feel like usually August and late July aren't huge recruiting times. And dude, it's crazy. We are in mid-July right now. It's we're like 6 weeks out.
We're at the almost exactly at the midway point. It is July 16th. You will get this on the 17th. On Wednesday. I know the Boundary Corner guys are recording right now while we're recording, letting them have their space, their little live time, and we'll post this tomorrow on Wednesday. But yeah, dude, I'm pumped for this. In fact, if you are listening to the pod feed on Spotify or Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast, you heard our new intro, and we got some of Sam's quotes in the intro. So hopefully you enjoyed that. We don't add that to the YouTube show because just don't want to get hit with any audio things. There was a famous video game that our bed music is from, one that may or may not have just been released this week. So I just don't want to get hit by a certain gaming company for that.
70, we'll talk about it. 70 million in sales off that game already.
Already? Oh my God. Yeah. We're going to talk about CFB 25 at the end. First, let's start with a cheers. And we're going to do some news and notes. So cheers to Sam.
Yeah, so I mean, my cheers is pretty basic to this one, but it feels like we are in the heart of the summer. It is exciting. There's not a lot of sports news going on. Euros is done, Copa America is done. But my cheers in this one is the last big sporting event we have this summer, and it is to the Olympics. And there are a lot of Hokie Olympians led by Nikhil Alexander Walker, Team Canada, the basketball team. They're looking pretty good. We also have a few track and field athletes, a few swimmers from Spain. I think we have one in Egypt. So there's a lot of Hokies all around. I'm sure for Hokie Sports, it will do a great job of publicizing that out. So look out for your Hokies in Paris this summer.
Cheers to that, man. I've got kind of a boring beer right now. However,
wow.
I rushed home and I bought a box that happened to be warm. And so I've got a cooler right next to me with the beer cooling down. So hopefully as we move through here, it will get cold.
What does it say about you to have a beer cooler next to your desk?
Well, it's one of those backpacks. I grabbed it from upstairs, threw a bunch of ice in it, and just brought it down. All right. So the uniform release came out. We're going to get into the uniform release. We're going to go into the details of that with a special guest. Clark Ruhland's going to join us in just a couple minutes. And then, but first, let's do some news. Keve Aluma, he continued to shine in Summer League this week. We talked a little bit about him before, but he dropped 19 and 8 in 22 minutes the other night. And on Sixers Twitter, which I am very much plugged into, everyone was saying, give him the two-way now, or give him a contract now. And there was a couple really good articles written on Sixers Twitter about him. One I shared on my feed, and it's looking good. Now, last night he played again, wasn't as good as the other night, but I think it was Sunday. He basically won the Sixers the game. Whatever game it was, it might have been at the end of last week. He had a three, he blocked a shot, and then he got an and one, and he essentially won them the Summer League game, and he looked really good doing it. So that was great for Keve, and his prospects are looking strong. And Couture was playing for the Cavs. I saw some shots made.
Yeah, drained a couple threes. The Cavs are a little late getting their season started, so they haven't had as much time, but he's looking good. He's out there playing. We'll see what happens with both he and Keve, but it'll be awesome to see some Mike Young coached Hokies in the NBA to join Nikhil.
Yeah, we need some more Hokies in the NBA. Our team has been upgraded enough over the last half decade. We should have some more. So we got to get more than just, Finney Smith and Nikhil in there. We've had some pop in and out. I know J-Rob was in there for a little while. We need some more Hokies in the NBA. Recruiting news, I said off the top, this is not going to be a recruiting heavy podcast. However, we did have a couple news items, and one was Peyton Falzone, guy me and Sam talked about, got upgraded to a 4-star on Rivals. That's nice because I don't even think 247 has really put out a whole lot of rankings yet.
No, 247 usually like waits a little bit longer than the other ones on some of the guys. So I also saw that he was listed as dual threat on Rivals. The only blurb I had seen about him was that he was a pocket passer. Obviously, a guy that tall at that young high school, you're kind of growing into your body a bit and you're getting more and more athletic. So maybe he's a guy that does develop into a bit more dual threat. So interesting to see his recruitment. We'll see how he plays this fall.
Yeah, long way to go for him. Junior
Long
year
way
is
to go.
going to be big for him. He's a 2026 guy, so he's got a couple more years in high school. I also wanted to mention Matei C went on to the Tales of the Terror Dome podcast with Dan. He's actually recording with the Boundary Corner guys now. So if you do need any updates, they did a lot of good individual talk on various prospects in the class with Matei. And so I would check out Dan's show or check out the Boundary Corner, which should be, in your feeds and on YouTube when you guys get this one, because Matei does a great job on 247 for them. Pat and Rich talked with Anthony Lambeau last week. This is something we didn't mention on our previous pod, but it was a cool interview with the former Hokies offensive lineman who played on the 1999 team. Anthony's a New Jersey native, much like Rich and Pat and myself. I'm not a native, but I do live in New Jersey. So a lot of Jersey in that episode. And Anthony just seems like an awesome dude, really awesome guy. And so I would check that out on the Sons of Saturday YouTube channel or on the Sons of Saturday podcast feed. And there are more position previews continuing to come out on the site, right, Sam?
Yes, there are. So Mike Holmes will be rolling those out. We'll have a few other preseason articles out there, and of course, a ton of podcast material. So, yeah, we are in full preseason mode right now. It is the busy season for talking.
MLB draft has been happening the last couple days, and a bunch of Hokies have been taken. Carson DiMartini was picked by my very own Phillies in the 4th round. Wyatt Parliament taken in the 7th round by the Yankees. Micheletti Ultra taken in the 8th round by the Blue Jays. And then Jordan Little, Christian Martin taken in the late teen rounds. Were there any more guys taken in 19 or 20?
I don't believe so. I don't think they've
Okay.
had anybody else yet. A good showing. I think Carson DiMartini, the 4th round pick. I mean, at this time last year, he was a 1st round guy, and I think it is tough when you are the star of a team. You kind of get pitched around a little bit. He had really good numbers, but he didn't have all ACC numbers or anything like that this year. So I think he'll be a good landing spot for the Phillies. I think he's a guy who, if he gets hot at the plate, can kind of rise up that minor league ranking because he's a very streaky hitter. We saw in a couple series this year that he popped off for 5, 6 home runs in a weekend. So the guy can really be streaky with the power hitting. So I think he could rise up the minor leagues pretty quickly. That jump from AAA to major, though, is the hardest jump. And I think he'll need to improve as a fieldman, especially at third base. Because I
Well,
don't,
think about who the Phils also have at short and
yeah,
third. And
it's
because, he did play
who the
short for
Phils
us
have
for the.
everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, we got Trey Turner at short. We've got, he's at second. We've got Alec Boehm, home run derby at at third base right now. Like there are a lot of good infielders on the
Yeah.
Phillies that may block him a couple years down the line, but things change quickly. And if he
Yeah.
plays really well, we just want to see him in the majors. And there's a DH spot now, so.
Yeah, and I have a cousin who played for the Iron Pigs for a couple years, has been in that system and has only said great things. So the Phillies one of the better developmental Major League Baseball systems. So good spot for Carson. The other guys just keep at it. It's an absolute grind to get from the minors to the majors, but good things that the Hokies are having guys drafted.
Yeah, this was a really good number for us. I know since Coach Chef has been here, like he's had a bunch of draftees. I think it was like 21 draftees. I mean, he put 5 guys in this draft alone. So it's pretty cool. And there's probably more to come as
Mhm.
as the baseball team continues to stay competitive. I also wanted to correct something we talked about. Someone commented on our YouTube about Micah Matthews and where he might go in the MLB draft. And I was kind of tracking it, and there was 113 high school players taken in the 2023 draft. I don't know what it is in 2024. It's probably similar, but that would put Micah. He should go around the 5th to 7th round if he stayed top 60, right?
I
Like,
was
because
I, I was thinking about this like after we talked about it. It is so weird because a lot of these guys getting picked are, if you look at the recruiting, you'll have like and I'm just pulling this number out of a hat, but like the 20th ranked high school pitcher will be taken before the 4th ranked high school shortstop. And it's just because they want those young arms all the time.
Interesting.
I'm curious where he would have
Yeah,
gone.
what the breakdown is, because I don't have that information of how many
Yeah,
pitchers, how many position players went. But if he's a top 60 player, the question of whether to be drafted, I think, is eliminated.
would
I
have
think he would
would
be
have got
drafted,
drafted for sure.
but probably in the top 10 rounds. Like that's
Maybe.
more than likely, and that's a good check. So that's going to be something that we have to battle. If he has a great year on the diamond, his last year in high school, he'll be eligible this time next year for the draft, and it could be a roadblock for us.
Yeah, it is a little weird. Again, the MLB drafting rules are different than the other sports. So, one committed, signed doesn't really matter. It is about like once the student enrolls in the university, then they have to be 21 in order to be drafted in the MLB draft. So it is
Yeah,
different
some schools
than
do
some. I think
years.
basketball is somewhat similar, but
Basketball is basically years removed from high school, and football is the same.
yeah,
With you have to be 3 years out of your high school to go to the NFL.
yeah,
It's different for Major League Baseball, slightly different.
yeah. So if he gets to Blacksburg, he's going to be in Blacksburg for a little bit. If he doesn't get to Blacksburg, he's probably coming to a minor league
He's
baseball near you.
he's coming to Blacksburg. Don't worry, we're gonna get Micah. I think he's going to be going on with the boys on the Sons of
Mhm.
Saturday channel later this week.
Yeah, and I'm excited to hear. He's a pretty articulate guy. When you hear little blurbs from him and in the recruiting videos and stuff, so I'm excited to see him on a full length podcast.
Yeah, I want to hear what he has to say about that potential drafting into MLB and what he might do straight from the horse's mouth. All right, seat backs in lane were the last news and note we have before we get to our guest. Did you see some of the photos of that today about there being a lot of seat backs connected to the
Yeah,
bleachers in lane?
yeah. I looks like all of West stands from the picture that Suns put out on Instagram and on Twitter, which I would love. That's where my family and I sit, and I think it's good. I think you kind of need that upgrade and luxury. I know Lane Stadium will never be a high tech facility. It will always have this old traditional football stadium feel to it. So
Mhm.
anytime you can get those little details of luxury in there, I think they make the very hefty season ticket price worth it. So uh, I'm all for it.
Someone did make a good comment about, is this going to interfere with jumping? Would the potential for the seat backs that are connected to the seats kind of create an interference when trying to jump for Enter Sandman?
I don't think so. I mean, you can order the maroon chairs to be put on your seat backs with your season tickets, and most of West Stands already has that. So I think it'll be okay.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. It won't deaden the noise or anything like that. It'll be pretty much the same lane you're used to, just with a little bit more comfort.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say it a lot of times places will put the seat backs in and it looks weird in an empty stadium. This looks pretty cool with the VTs. When you zoom out from it,
Mhm.
it looks pretty good. So I
It
think they
does
did a
look
good
good.
job.
All right, let me
Hopefully they're
add our
comfortable.
guest to the screen.
Hey,
Clark Ruhland, what's
what
going
up?
on, man? Welcome back to the show.
How's everybody doing? You staying cool? It's a little hot.
Yeah,
It's a little hot down here in
yeah.
Southwest
Well,
Virginia.
it helps I'm in the basement. How are you doing? Is it hot over there, Sam? In 757?
The dog and I went for a walk right before this at about 8 o'clock at night, and I was dripping with sweat when I got back. So
I'm getting
that's
up
how
and
we're
mowing
doing.
my grass at 7:30 tomorrow morning. So
Yeah, you gotta do
it's
it.
got to happen. It's too hot.
So we are welcoming Clark back to the show, and I say welcome back because he helped us with our best win podcasts, and he's also been on several of our other shows. He was on the national championship show. Uh, Great guest and the perfect person to break down these new uniforms that came out last week. And we first have to address just kind of how this went down, because there was a scheduled release, a more or less a scheduled release. It was the tease of 7/12/2024. We're going to get the new unis. And then the day before, we have a streamer playing as Virginia Tech in what looks to be our new uniforms. And everyone's like, oh, is this them? Is this them? And it went very viral among Hokie Twitter. And lo and behold, Hokies football basically had to say, you got us. And Clark, you have had various levels of involvement with the team and design over the years, many different things for a long period of time. You were involved with this process of the uniform change, correct?
A little bit right at the beginning.
Okay. And did you have any inside information of when the leak happened? That there was pure chaos over at Merriman?
Oh, I mean, it was all over social media when that happened. I mean, you know, when it first popped up, I was like, okay, I knew I had knowledge in advance that the uniforms were going to be in the game. That's kind of why they had scheduled the release right before the game was released this week. But I was as shocked as everyone else was when the video came out and they were running out of the tunnel, and I'm like, wow, well, we got new uniforms.
And despite being involved, maybe at the beginning stages, you didn't necessarily know what the final product was going to look like. I think, like, how many people would you say had access to like that final product of uniforms?
Oh, I mean, they kept it pretty tight in the athletic department, but regardless of how it got leaked, damn, they look good, right?
Yes, yes,
that's the important.
That's the way I approach it. I'm like, man, like they look awesome, and everybody was just all about them. I mean, that's the best part about it more than anything else. I feel bad for the folks in the athletic department and the creative team that had prepared everything to roll out. They approached it as well as they possibly could have.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't kill any of the vibe at all. I mean, that video that Bud Foster narrated, I mean, I was ready to run out of the room and run to Blacksburg. I mean, I'm ready for football season. I mean, it's crazy.
I will also point out Tech wasn't the only team to have their uniform reveal spoiled. Oregon State's was spoiled like a solid month before they put it out. And then you had, I believe, like San Jose State and somebody else. So there's a couple schools who got with the Twitch streamers.
Something I was thinking about with the game, and I feel like a lot of teams have new uniforms this year. Does it seem like more teams than normal have like a whole new uni set? Because, and a lot of them got the copy paste shoulder stripes. We saw a couple more come out even after ours came out. I was grateful we didn't have that, but it just seems like so many teams, maybe because of the game and a lot of other things going on, got new uniforms for this year. But maybe every year it's 30 teams. I don't know.
Well, a lot of it had to do with Nike moving to this new, what they call the chassis, which is the cut of the jersey. It's called this Fuse.
Let me pull up the images for the watchers. Go ahead, Clark.
But it's called the Fuse chassis, which is basically, it's got kind of that V-neck look to it. That's got the stitching right up to the shoulder. They've kind of made that universal with a lot of schools. So I mean, if you look at anybody that's released a uniform in the last 2 years, it kind of has that similar look. It's got the vents on the bottom of the collar. Schools like LSU have a little bit more modified where it goes straight out so they can have the shoulder stripes and that kind of stuff. But a lot of that has to do with Nike, not producing the previous, iterations of uniforms. And, I mean, Tech was one of those schools that was ready for a new uniform set.
And I want to ask you, obviously there's some very cool aspects to this. I think they did a really good job of blending the old classic look with some modern twists. Do you want to talk about some of the cool features of this uniform that you like, Clark?
Well, my favorite feature is something that's really, really minute about the uniforms, and that's the tech across the front of the helmet. Obviously the grit was on the front of it right there at the end of the previous coach's administration, and they moved to the VT logo there. And there were just so many VT logos on the uniform. There were 2 on the side of the helmet. There was 1 on the chest, and there was 1 on the front of the helmet. So I was like, that is a perfect spot for the word tech. People around here say tech. And not only that, it was used in the 80s. So during Bruce Smith's era, if you see pictures of him, it says tech right across the front of the helmet there. So it's kind of an homage to the early years in the 80s. And Bruce Smith, I mean, everybody knows Bruce Smith. So it's kind of like a little homage to him and that era with the Dooley era right there before Frank Beamer started as a coach.
Yeah, Sam, did you have something that particularly stood out to you? We had talked about our predictions about how they might look. We both predicted that there wouldn't be shoulder stripes. I think you did say you think there would be a stripe on the helmet, and on the white uniform there is a stripe on the helmet. Anything that you like a lot about these uniforms?
Well, the white helmet got accidentally leaked a long time ago, but I think they were always going to have, and this is just from what I've seen from other schools, they like to have enough difference in the helmet, not just like a different color or something. So I kind of thought they'd have a little bit something different with the white helmet. I obviously, man, I have a few things. I think they look amazing. They're better than I ever could have even imagined in my head when I was hearing leaks about them and people who had seen them describe them to me. I was kind of having a hard time visualizing it because obviously no one had a picture of them. And now seeing them, like, they're executed so well, and it looks so clean and crisp. And I think as a Tech student, not only as a Tech fan, when I think of Virginia Tech as a university, it's very much of embrace tradition, but be future thinking and be very innovative and, invent the future, whatever. That's the school slogan, whatever they want to call it now is not the school slogan. It's invent the future. And these to me are like a perfect modernization of a classic football uniform. And I really, really love that. One question for Clark is they did the classic VT on the neck logo or the collar. Heard a lot of rumblings that they wanted to incorporate, or they are incorporating, the gobbler head logo a lot more into different merchandise and different logos and things like that. Was there ever a thought to put that Hokie bird head on that spot? And maybe why were the reasons that they didn't do that?
I'm honestly not sure. I know that the Hokie bird head has started to arise a little bit more. You see it in the front of the podium during press conferences. You see it on polo shirts. I saw Nike released a whole bunch of polo shirts the other day, and that was the logo.
That's where I got it. Yeah.
I mean, I think as an alternative logo, it's a great logo. I mean, I love the bird standing, with the flexing the arm and all that stuff. I'm surprised. I'm not surprised all at the same time. I think when you look at this jersey and you see folks that are going to be buying them in the stores, the VT logo is the perfect thing right there because there's no Virginia Tech anywhere else on the jersey. I mean, it has Utprosum on the collar in the back, but having that VT on the chest right there is it makes it a little bit more recognizable, a little bit more notable. I wouldn't be surprised if the Hokie bird head gets used in some future uniform designs and stuff. I mean, I think it's a good element to use. But the VT is just such a strong logo. I mean, it's been that brand for, almost over 40 years now.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that we have that VT on the collar rather than a bird head or rather than it being the pillars or just about anything else. It is so iconic for us. And I know people have a problem with the academic version of that VT, but the classic VT is classic for a reason, and it fits very well with these.
It fits so perfectly in that V right there.
Absolutely.
In the collar.
It was made for that. That's what it was made for.
I like that. That's really the only element of both uniforms that is exactly the same is that collar with the white VT. It's the same on both, which is really
true.
Cool.
It's the same color on both.
And I think I had that same thought when it came to having that VT. If somebody's just wearing the jersey, there's nowhere else that says Hokies or Virginia Tech or anything like that. You need a brand logo on there. And if you have just the turkey head, people outside of Virginia Tech who don't know Virginia Tech football that well might not recognize that logo. So having your recognizable logo on there is important. And I just can't get over how good they look, dude.
Yeah, they do look fantastic. And I didn't actually say my review, but yes, I love them. I think they are awesome. I know Clark loves them. He said as much. Let's talk about a few of the other elements. The orange numbers on the sleeve. We thought we might get that, and we did. That is a throwback to the 95 to 99 uniforms or 2002. It went to Clark. What are the years? It's 95 to 2002.
Yeah, the first year they started doing orange numbers on the shoulders was 1995, and so they stayed basically until the ACC era started.
Okay, and then we got the double outline, as it's called, on both sets of numbers, which I had talked about that orange outline around the white number, but whether it's the sleeves or the ones on the chest and the back, there's, an opposite color of what the number is, and then there's the orange outline and or a secondary outline on the shoulder numbers. And I love the way it pops is really good. And speaking of the numbers, the Hokie stone, Clark, in the numbers, that looks different to me than the old uniforms.
It is. I think the grout where it defines the blocks of stone is definitely a darker, color to the white jersey or to the white numbers,
more emphasized,
or it's a little bit lighter on the maroon numbers, which I think is awesome. Like that little element is it's a little detail. You're not going to notice it from a far distance. It's not going to make a difference when you're watching it at the stadium, but it's just a cool little detail that no other school uses. One thing I love about these uniforms is, sure, at a distance they are plain. That's fine. That's what defines Virginia Tech and the era where they took off. But also when you get up close, you see all of those little details, the double outline, the orange numbers on the sleeves. Even the grout is in the orange numbers, which is awesome. I mean, the level of detail on these jerseys is crazy.
Yeah. And I also want to point out two other things. The Hokies on the pants, as opposed to Virginia Tech or whatever else you could put on those pants. I like just our word mark and our font that we have, Hokies on the pants, and the maroon collar on the white jersey. I want to flip back to this image because you can see it better. But they talk about this maroon collar on the white jersey, and on the maroon jersey is just all maroon. And they said the letterman might have had something to do with that choice on the maroon collar. Do you know anything about that?
I know early on it was solid white, so I like the change, or I like that element. The maroon collar on the white jersey got introduced in 2004, so you can take everything from the ACC era. That is a little element representing the beginning of the ACC all the way through up until now. I mean, it was a maroon collar last year, so I think that's really cool. But also, like I said earlier, it's a uniform part of both of the jerseys, which I think that little small element like that is it's a nice little homage.
I agree. Sam, did you have any final commentary on the designs or any?
Yeah, that I literally just started smiling looking at that all maroon under the lights in lane. Like that is awesome. Cool. That the shade of maroon, and this is something that I think a lot of people have gotten, or maybe their biggest gripe with uniforms for Virginia Tech, and this is football, basketball, baseball, whatever. The shade of maroon is, and you've talked about this before, Clark, it has a lot to do with putting it on that kind of Nike dry fit fabric. Obviously, I'm wearing orange right now, and in this camera, this is like highlighter orange. In real life, on this camera, it looks like red, pink. Right. Some colors do that. Talk to me about the shade of maroon on the helmet and jersey. I think this uniform set nailed it. It looks perfect. The helmet and the jersey match colors, even being very different materials. I think that's really cool.
Well, the helmet color has not changed since 1999. No, 2000 is when it changed. Before, it did not have the fleck in it. It was just kind of the maroon solid maroon finish. I mean, that's one of the jersey or one of the helmets right there. Mm-hmm. So it became a little bit darker when they added the metal fleck into it. So it's always been just a shade darker than the jersey. It became much more noticeable when they went to kind of it was a little bit lighter style pink, I guess you could say. It was a pinker version of maroon, but that was the color that was given to Tech by Nike. So I think that this one, in all the photographs and everything that we've seen so far, it looks darker for sure. I'd be very curious to see them laying side by side, because I bet it's not as much of a difference as most people think. I think they're thinking it's darker, but it probably isn't that much darker unless you really do a side by side comparison.
So as you guys are watching, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see in the top corner, one, give us a like, subscribe to the channel. But in the top corner, you can see our Two Deep logo. And Clark actually designed that little logo for us, so it could be, used in a circle avatar or whatever else. That shade of maroon in that logo is the lighter purple maroonish from what we
Yeah.
were using. Clark has on a 1999 jersey that is the darker maroon. Now, there's lighting differences or whatever. They are very close. But when
Right.
you put them on over an entire jersey material, maybe you put a bunch of them in a row or you're looking at it in a certain light, it can look more purple without a doubt. And if you're looking at it as a graphic on your phone, that can look very purple. Against orange, it tends to look more maroon. And so that's there are a lot of different ways that you can see these colors. Overall, I agree with Sam. I do think it looks darker. That's what Clark seems to think as well. They match really well, as Sam indicated. Like you're looking at Kyron wearing that jersey, and that's who's wearing the 25 and the maroon. And it looks immaculate. It's a perfect match. It's all maroon everything. It's what we love. And I can't talk about it enough. So let's talk about the public reaction overall. And I thought whether it was Uniswag or all these national accounts, it got pretty much universal praise across the board. Did you guys see any detractors from this?
There's always going to be a bad apple in every bunch. There's always going to be someone who complains.
It's shockingly few.
You can staple $100 bill to some people's foreheads and they'll complain that it's not $200. You know, I mean, that's some people will be like, oh, I like the stripes on the sleeves, or I don't like the orange numbers, or it's too plain. There's no details. It's like, you know, at the end of the day, it's a football team. You want to play well.
And I think,
but for the most part,
extremely rare, like consensus in 2024 to get this much of a consensus of approval. You could, our design team, our university, Nike, whoever, they killed it. I mean, they knocked it completely out of the park. And I think 99.9% of fans love these new jerseys. I love them. Hopefully I'll grab one with one of our NIL players' names on the back. That would be very sweet. The other thing that Dan was talking about on his show, Dan from Tales of the Terror Dome, was that these jerseys really do mark a new era. It marks an old era in some ways, but these are prize uniforms. And I hadn't really thought about that so much. But when you look back at the striped shoulder uniforms, despite the fact that we played 2 years under Pry with those uniforms, those are Fuentes uniforms. I think that's how a lot of people are going to see them. And these are going to be seen as prize uniforms. And I kind of like, as long as we start to play really well, I kind of like that fresh start, fresh unis. It's a cool thought process.
The helmet was kind of the beginning of the stamp of the Pry era. You know, this year will be the 4th different white helmet that has been worn in Lane Stadium with Brent Pry as the head coach. I know it sounds crazy. The spring game, it was still the tapered stripes. Mm-hmm. And then the first game they rolled out, I guess it was Boston College. It had the maroon and orange, maroon stripe down the center. And then last year it had a little bit more white added to it. And then this year it was inverted to match the VT logo on the helmet. So there's been a little bit of variation. You can do that with the helmets a lot easier than you can with the jerseys. But, you know, the first year, once you get in there, you're not worried about the uniforms. You're worried about, you know, how can we change the team and win some ball games? So the year after that was when that design process, like, let's get the ball rolling. I mean, let's not lie. It took a year for this to happen. It's not like it's something that they started working on in March or April and it just happened to get it. I mean, this is a long process. This started before last season. So when Grant Wells was still the starting quarterback, these uniforms were starting to be in production.
Yeah, it's funny to think how long it takes to get to this point. And Clark has sent me a couple different texts over the last week about just how pleased he is. So this is not a front. He loves them, and as you can see behind him, if you're watching,
cheers.
He knows
uniforms.
Cheers to that. Yeah.
Yes.
You can see how much he loves the Virginia Tech uniform. Collects the helmets. He's even selling some of his jerseys on Twitter right now. If you want,
I took a bunch to FedEx yesterday, so a lot of happy Hokies are going to have jerseys for football season.
Very nice. Well, let's take a quick break to talk about our sponsor, and then let's talk about some of the beer we're having. Two Deep Hokies Under the Influence podcast is brought to you by Roback. Roback is the performance activewear designed for those who crave activity. You can use code 2DeepVT at roback.com and grab yourself the Commonwealth Polo. You're going to need it if you're down in Nashville, like the three of us are going to be. Or grab yourself the Berg for when it gets a little bit cooler. That's the quarter zip with the two-tone maroons. Or grab any of their other stuff. They got great women's stuff, They got tons of polo designs all across the board. You want hot dogs on your polo? You can get it. You want an LSU polo to go with your Tech polo? You can get that. So go to Rowback.com, load up your cart, and use code 2DeepVT for 20% off your order. Rowback Crave Activity. For right now, Sam, I need to know what you are drinking.
I was unfortunately not able to make it to the specialty beer store in downtown Suffolk this week. So we're back. We're finishing out. This is the last one. I got the 8-point IPA from Devil's Backbone. I've had it on the show.
I got to get your
before.
review for that for last week.
Yeah. This one I really like. So Devil's Backbone, they crush it. We've talked about this. I wish they made the 8-point and 8%. That would, in my head, that makes so much branding sense. It doesn't. They have these cool cans that they have. I think they're relatively new, the like more creative looking cans from Devil's Backbone. The beer tastes great. It's a classic IPA. There's nothing crazy about it. It's a solid 3.75 on a
3.75. Okay.
3.75.
Clark, what are you having?
So I am drinking from Big Lick Brewing Company in downtown Roanoke. It is called the Bareback Bronco. It is a New England single hop IPA. They have a series at Big Lick Brewing called White Bronco, and it is an orange juice IPA. So you can do the math.
That's good.
It
That's
is
good.
very
That's good.
popular. I mean, the White Bronco is a very popular beer. It's seasonal sometimes, so sometimes you can get it when you go in there, and sometimes you can't. They have several different variants. The double White Bronco is a good one. A friend of mine brought that to a Tech game last year. Very tasty. But this one's the Bareback Bronco, but it's single hop, but it's got the
Oh, I see why it's the Bareback. Yeah, it's got the top
Ford
off.
Bronco with the top off like that. So this is a really, really solid beer. I'm not a big IPA guy, but it's not super hoppy because it's a single hop. So it's very juicy. And I got a 4-pack of it when I went to Big Lick. I love Big Lick Brewing Company. If you're ever in Roanoke area, an awesome vibe. They always have live music. We've had some Virginia Tech Alumni Association events there. We had one there 2 weeks ago.
Very nice.
Awesome courtyard. So if you're in Roanoke for a Tech game later in the year, when it cools off, they have fire pits out there that are gaslit fire pits. Just an awesome place to go grab a beer. And their beer is really, really tasty. The building that they're in is an old 100+ year old building that's been renovated in downtown Roanoke. Really cool little spot. And there's also several other breweries right in that little neck of the woods. So you can go there for a whole evening and enjoy your night. Big Lick Brewing Company, really cool spot.
I like that, dude. I think you brought me, I don't know if it was that Bronco, but you definitely brought me a couple of those Broncos when you came up here and stayed for the Rutgers game. And it's
popular.
It was very good. I am drinking the Sierra Nevada Summer Fest. This is a refreshing summer lager. I actually think it's a German Pilsner. And I was telling Sam, I was cooling it down. Not as cold as I'd like it, but it is good. This is a very good beer. And I'm a sucker for Sierra Nevada, and I'm a sucker for German beer. And so whether it's Pilsner or Kolsch or a Bock or whatever, like I love German beer. Hefeweizen maybe a little bit lower on my list, but yeah, man, this summer fest, I guess the Oktoberfest are already starting to hit the shelves.
I can't wait.
This is a Summerfest. Dude, did you see the tweet that someone put out? It was David Hale about what is it? The Southern Tier Pumpkin already in stores.
See, I almost grabbed a Pumpkin out of my fridge and was like, no, they're gonna give me crap because I'm drinking a pumpkin beer this early. Man, I mean, Pete, you and I are big Pumpkin fans.
Oh yeah,
Pumpkin, Warlock, any of the variants. I mean, you just can't beat them. You can't.
But I do. It's too early. Before July 4th, it's too early.
It's early.
But yeah, next month, August, feel free, buy your pumpkin beer, save it for September, October, or if you feel the need,
you have to because it sells out.
It will
pumpkin
sell
beer
out. The
goes
good ones
quick.
will sell out. I do find it lasting longer and longer in the stores than it used to, but the good ones, yes, indeed, will sell out early because they're on the shelves in July,
Yeah.
for Christ's sake. I also wanted to revisit that Mike Gundy conversation we had the other day, Sam. We talked initially about his commentary, and he had mentioned, if you didn't listen to our last show, about how, if you have 2 beers or 4 beers and you're at close to the legal limit, like how bad is it? I've done that a lot in my life. Do you realize that Ollie Gordon is 20?
Okay, so I'm gonna start this out. I don't
Okay.
like Mike Gundy. I didn't like Mike Gundy before this, and now this just proves how right I am.
So he's parsing all
So-
that out.
Well, he also didn't
like,
mention
it's zero tolerance if you're under 21.
Nah.
It's just like
he
absolutely
also had an
ludicrous.
open bottle of vodka and an open bottle of tequila in his car when getting
Right.
pulled over.
It's
so
just absurd to like
yeah,
to bring up that conversation about how many beers you can have and safely drive home when the kid is under 21 is just makes it so much more ridiculous. We've been joking on a couple of our buddies' threads just about like everything, like using the term Gundy or I got too Gundied last night or whatever about everything. And it's dark and wrong, but it's just like he's just an idiot.
yeah. I'd
Gundy's
say
been there a long time now, hasn't he?
He sure
this
has.
is his 18th season as head coach
Holy
at Oklahoma
smokes.
State, and he has not had a losing season.
Yeah. That's nuts. Wow. I mean, he's
I
a
mean,
good
how
football
many guys
coach.
are more
He's a good
tenured
football
at their
coach.
school than Mike Gundy?
Maybe
Very, very-
Ferenc?
Yep, Kirk Ferentz.
I
That
mean, Ferentz was
might,
hired in the 90s, right?
that might be it.
Whittingham.
Kyle Whittingham,
but not as
no,
a-
I don't even know if Kyle Whittingham had been there 17
He's been
years.
at Utah
No.
longer, like since the 90s, but he hasn't been the
Oh.
head coach the whole time.
Still,
yeah.
though, I mean, I'm a man. I'm 40. Seemed like it was 20 years ago at this point.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Anyway, I just brought that up because we were at the tail end of our beer break. Moving on. I want to talk about Media Days. We've got a couple of our guys heading down to Charlotte for the ACC kickoff, as it's called. It's not technically called Media Days. Tuesday, July 23rd. And representing the Hokies will be Antoine Powell-Ryland, Dorian Strong, and Kyron Drones. So 3 of our studs, probably the 3 best players on the team. Tootin might have something to say. Jennings might have something to say. Really, really good representatives. But I had other like people that were going down because that's whatever. Those are our guys. We like those guys. We're going to hear what they have to say. But
I do find it interesting about those guys. It's like some years you think they're having a hard time picking who to take down there. And this probably had to be one of the hardest years to pick which 3 guys to take down there because there's a lot of talent, a lot of good guys, and a lot of well-spoken guys on the team that can do an awesome job at Media Day.
And am I wrong? So DJ Uiagalelei from Florida State put out a statement that he declined the invitation from the ACC to go down because, and I don't got thumbs up. I'm not thumbs downing that. I'm not thumbs downing that because he was like, "Hey, I'm a new guy. There are guys returning from the team last year that went undefeated. They deserve to go on to it." Right.
Well, he's technically not a new guy to the ACC.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm wondering,
I know what you mean.
Is it, does the ACC invite you or does the school like put you up for invitation?
it's
Like, what
just
is that
the school.
process?
I don't know
think
the process, but
I would think
usually the quarterback is there. Like there are only 2 teams that don't have a quarterback going as a representative, and it's Florida State and Wake Forest. And I think it's Wake Forest because their quarterbacks are
Who
terrible.
is their quarterback?
Those are the 2 transfer quarterbacks. Hank Bachmeier.
Hank Bachmeier's one of them. Me and Sam have spent a lot of intellectual capital on Hank Bachmeier this offseason
Too much.
God knows what reason. But and then the other one is Florida State. And I hadn't heard that note about DJU. So that they're sending 2 defensive linemen from Florida State in addition to an offensive lineman, Darius Washington. But I've got the list here, and we need to talk about our rival because they are sending Tony Muskett as one of their representatives. And I found that very interesting. I sent it to one of our threads of just like, so UVA is really taking Tony Muskett to Media Day. That must mean like he is the presumed starter. I could be wrong. I'm sure that's happened where a guy goes and then the other guy beats him out. But that's not a good sign for Anthony Calandria.
No, and there have been pretty much everything from UVA's camp and people who cover UVA since the beginning of last season was this is definitely a 50-50 quarterback battle between Tony Muskett and Anthony Calandria. And Calandria had good moments. He had a lot of really bad moments last year. And Tony Muskett had some good moments and he had some really bad moments. And I think when you are choosing between 2 players, you're usually going to choose the more veteran guy. And I think
Especially after Calandria made all those
I mean, I don't
dumb
see
mistakes and stuff during their season.
I don't know if Calandria is ready to.
Well, my
for it
counter
right
to
now,
that, Sam, would
even though he might be better.
if you've got 2 guys that are both kind of crappy. Why wouldn't you try to, and your team's kind of crappy. Why wouldn't you try to build for the future and develop that younger guy? And that to me means that Calandria was significantly behind Musket.
I mean, he wasn't good.
Well,
think
neither of them
there's
were
an
any
idea
good.
that he was good. Like he really wasn't that good. And I think
He
also
showed flashes and he was very young. He got thrown into
Very.
a tough situation with a bad offensive line.
yeah, and you have to think like Tony Elliott is in a win now situation for his job security. I mean,
That
I
could be
understand
more
he's
of it.
had a lot of unfortunate off-field stuff that has made his job a little bit more important than being a football coach. But I also think, man, like at some point you got to start winning football games. And even for UVA, like they at least want to make bowl games. And he hasn't been close in his first 2 years. So maybe if he feels like he needs a guy to get them through the non-conference slate with some wins, he's kind of got to take that.
That is, well, I'm just glad that that we're not in that situation where we have
No kidding.
Grant Wells potentially on our roster still, and he beat out, Kyron to go to ACC Media Day. Let me tell you that right now. That would not be a good situation. And that's kind of what it feels like. Although, Calandria did not have the year that Drones had, at least in terms of the perception from the Hokie side of things. Some UVA fans might think differently. I also noticed Pitt was bringing Yarnell as their starting quarterback. And we talked a little bit about this, Sam and I did, Clark, and I don't know what's going on with Pitt right now.
Terrible.
For a while, they could kind of recruit all 3 stars and Narduzzi would find a way to do something. And to the point that they caught lightning in a bottle and won the ACC when Clemson was having a down year. But
Yeah.
I think they're headed in the wrong direction, big time.
I think they're terrible. Like I think they're
Couldn't happen to a better guy though.
they're a bad football team. They can't recruit. They can't do NIL. I put out my program power rankings, which we're going to do again this year. I'm finishing up the article for that. Sneak preview. I have them at 88, and I think that's pretty.
There are how many power teams are there now? There's
134.
No, power teams
power
conference, 68, 60, 70, something like that.
60-ish.
Okay.
65-ish.
So if you're 88,
yeah, I mean
that's not good.
They're sandwiched between Houston and Duke.
Okay. Yeah.
That's not great. They don't have a lot of returning talent. They haven't recruited well. They haven't won in the portal. They have a tough schedule. It's not looking good for Pitt.
So both Duke and UNC are bringing 5 kids to Media Days each. Now it's in Charlotte, so it's easy for them to get there, whatever. Can either of you guys tell me the starting quarterback who's going to Media Days for UNC?
Yeah,
Couldn't even guess.
Texas A&M guy.
You are correct, Sam. It is Max Johnson.
Yeah, that's what his name is.
Yeah. And I until I saw that today, because I haven't done all my off-season research, and we're not even playing UNC this year. And so I have not really looked into them a whole lot. I did not remember that it was Max Johnson until I saw this list of Media Day attendees. But
one of the things that I like to do when it comes to the early part of the season, now that the new game is back out, is play the season and look at all the ACC teams and whatnot. Now that we don't have to insert the names into the rosters anymore, it's good to get familiar with the other programs and that kind of stuff playing the game. So I thought the exact same thing, Clark.
I mean,
when I was a student, I would go in when I first got the game and type in all the names of all the players from Virginia Tech, just because one, I knew most of them, but it was also a way to get familiarized with the team. But then, you could download the rosters, or you could, import them somehow to your system and that kind of stuff. And that was an easy way to learn what the other teams were and who their players were and who their star players were based on, what EA decided. So, I mean, I'll start learning about all the transfers and all that stuff once I get the game here next week.
Well, that's one of the reasons I felt like, because I don't own a current system. I know Sam is you just got one, right?
Yes, I've recently become a video game person. I am Assassin's Creed is awesome. I'm just gonna put that.
My brother really enjoys that game.
Yeah, it's awesome. I don't know what I've been doing my whole life with playing video games.
But I want to get the system and play the game. I'm not sure I'm even gonna do that. But one of the reasons I want to is just so I can preview the teams better, just because I
Right.
know the rosters better by playing the game, like just playing ACC schedule so I can learn a little bit about our opponents. But we'll talk about the game in about 10 minutes. I want to talk about the Big 12 and some of these ACC schools that could be heading to the Big 12, because this is rumbling season, realignment season. We're right there, middle of July into August. We're going to hear a lot about this. And Brett McMurphy, put out an article today talking about how FSU is unlikely to be added to the Big Ten of the SEC, citing that it doesn't make financial sense and that they've been a quote unquote disruptive partner. And that is quite funny. If you kind of think about all the grandstanding and stamping their feet that FSU has done over the past year plus about how we need to be more competitive. And part of me is grateful to FSU for not for saying the quiet part out loud to everyone in the ACC. Like, hey, this is really bad. Why did we sign a 20-year television contract? That's completely ridiculous at this point. But it may, and I think that Big Ten's kind of using this as an excuse, it may end up keeping them out of the conferences they so desire to be in. And that means they may be going to the Big 12. Your thoughts, Sam, on Clemson and FSU potentially going to the Big 12 and where that might leave Virginia Tech?
I don't know. So another tweet I saw, this one's from Matt Hayes, who has been a sort of freelance college football journalist for a long time now. He says, big source, big as in the Big Ten. Source tells me about Florida State, quote, I don't know who's advising them right now, but they're doing them a disservice. I do think it has to be said that you have in Clemson and Florida State institutions that are spending millions of dollars in legal fees fighting a contract that they signed. And at this point, it seems like they're doing that so they can get to a conference with a lower TV payout in the hopes that they can then renegotiate that TV payout to be something higher to the point where they will get paid out more per team in a larger conference with less TV viewership than the ACC by a substantial margin. And if you take away the Colorado games from when Deion Sanders got there, it gets even worse. So at some point, I think Florida State's going to have to look in the mirror and say, what are we actually doing here? And Clemson, the same thing, because, dude, if you're Florida State and Clemson, you can run this conference for the foreseeable decade.
Go to the playoff every year. I mean, there are going to be Louisvilles and Techs that step up and win, but yes.
I mean,
you're competing every year.
Yeah.
If Florida State goes to the SEC, look at Florida. Like, Florida has a win total of 4.5 this year. Look at Mississippi State. Look at Arkansas. Look at South Carolina. They don't have a shot. And those are big football programs. They don't have a shot. I don't know what I think Florida State is trying to do. They had the right idea at the start, and now they just don't want to bow out. Now they're in it for the long haul, and I don't think it's going to work. I really don't.
Yeah. Clark, did you have any thoughts on this before I kind of say my piece on it?
Well, that kind of feels like Sam was saying, it kind of feels like they've paved the way to going to this direction that they want to go. And now they're a little like, we've gone too far. Now we've burned our bridge behind us. And so we're kind of in no man's land. I think they kind of hope that eventually they can land somewhere. But I mean, this is all rumors.
It is. It is rumors.
We didn't think in 2002, 2003 that Virginia Tech was going to be in the ACC.
No.
So from year to year, you just don't know. I mean, things can change in a heartbeat. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if Virginia Tech showed up in the Big 12 here in a couple of years.
And that's where
the Big 12 would love to have an East Coast presence like Clemson or a Florida State or Virginia Tech or North Carolina or something like that. So, I mean, nothing would surprise me. It just depends on if the ACC is a sinking ship or if they are staying afloat. If they're staying afloat, all these schools would be good to stay where they are, especially if they can build more revenue.
I think you guys aren't thinking outside the box enough here. I mean, what other than Olympic sports and not even basketball at this point? I know we had a good tournament run for the ACC, but like this conference is dead. It is dying before our eyes. And why would we not want it? Because it sounds like the Big 12 is going to be expanding. they're going to be taking Florida State and Clemson. And if they take those schools, that's what it seems like right now. It's all rumors, but that's what it seems like to me reading the tea leaves.
If those schools disband, then
we
the
need to
boat's
go.
beginning to sink. You've
Yes.
got to get on the first lifeboat out of.
You've got to
there.
go with them.
And if that's going with Florida State and Clemson, those are two pretty big hitters in the ACC.
And I think we're desirable.
It's not going to be as sexy of a leave if you went with Georgia Tech and Pitt or Syracuse as if you went with Clemson or Florida State or North Carolina or even Miami to an extent.
Miami too. And that's the thing.
Miami's just all that.
Right. And the Big 12, Brett Yormark has been aggressive to say the least. He's talking about getting potentially these two schools, a private equity deal where it pays them an exorbitant amount of money. Now, I don't buy all of that kind of stuff, those rumors, but there's been as many as potentially 6 schools referenced as going to the Big 12, VT being one of them. I'm not sure of all 6, but we've been in certain rumors here and there. And I believe that we would be one of those top 6 schools. I mean, we were part of the Magnificent 7, as it were, when those came out, and we are desirable. And so essentially, here's the deal. It's this simple. Wherever Florida State and Clemson go, we need to be there. If they stay in the ACC, we need to be there. If they go to the Big 12, we need to be there, or we need to be in the SEC or Big 10. And we need to get an invite, which Big 10, unlikely because we don't have AAU right now. And SEC, we're going to get our teeth kicked in all the time. I'm not sure. I'd take the money, but is that a great fit for Virginia Tech?
It's not a good fit.
If Tech gets to AAU status, which could probably happen in the next couple of years, that will definitely make them a bigger brand in terms of the academia standpoint of things. And I think Big 10 tends to go after the academia a little bit more than the SEC does.
Well, that certainly goes without saying. I would agree.
Yeah. And one thing I would point out as well, a lot of these TV contracts, like with Fox and the Big 12, have recently been negotiated. Big corporations don't love continually renegotiating contracts. I think it is going to be really tough for this to happen within the next year. I know there's a lot of people, like Josh Pate has been really on this, a few other college football talking heads. I say that in a lovable way, but content creators type thing have been saying, oh, this is happening now. This is happening now. I would pump the brakes on that a little bit because we had a lot of movement really quick. We had a lot of contracts written up. I don't think Fox is going to do anything to hurt their bottom line just so some college football people can be happy. Fox has a lot of other fish in their fishbowl. I don't think college football isn't that important to Fox.
Well, you say that, but if Florida State,
but they've gotten big into it in the last.
If they win, if they get out, if the grant of rights ends up being, not worth the paper it's written on or whatever, because they're still in the process of this, the legal battle. But if Florida State becomes a free agent, contracts will be rewritten. They will be torn up and rewritten.
I think if that happens, if somehow Florida State and Clemson win this, and if they win it, I think the first step is going to be a renegotiation with ESPN. If ESPN says no to that, then I think you have the free agency market. But there's that really important step where if you had to choose between being aired on Fox or ESPN, which one would you rather be on?
Oh, you definitely take ESPN.
Yeah, I mean, you take ESPN, but Fox
that does involve a little bit of ABC.
Yeah,
but Fox is in more homes than ESPN.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, these are the things you have to. There's a lot of steps that have to happen, is my point. And I do think if they win that grant of rights, I do think the first step would be the ACC negotiating with ESPN. But the ACC is I don't think under the best leadership right now. So
no, it's not. And for all the blowhard that Brett Yormark may be, at least he is aggressive. At least he has ideas, and at least they're trying things. And I can appreciate that. And even the little nugget about Big 12 may sell off their football contracts and their basketball contracts separately because it will be an extremely good basketball conference.
Yeah.
One that we could potentially get in. Oh, and maybe that would add some ACC schools to make it even better. An NC State, a Miami, a Duke, who knows? But it's that's outside the box thinking too. And that's just something that Jim Phillips in the ACC they are always reactionary, never actionary. So that's what has bugged me about this conference for a long time. And I'd jump to the Big 12 tomorrow if Clemson and Florida State are going to be in. Because we'd still
I'd
have
agree
West
with that.
Virginia. We could play. We could play
Oh, yeah.
Cincinnati. Clark and I were talking about this earlier. And the other teams they had from the ACC. There will be people within our region that we could get enough local games that we're not going all over the goddamn place to play games.
I know when we went up to Morgantown a couple years ago, all the West Virginia fans were like, we just can't stand the fact that all the schools that we play are Oklahoma and Oklahoma State and Texas Tech, Kansas, and all this stuff. We have no regional rivalries or anything like that. Mm-hmm. They miss playing Virginia Tech. I think that Tech, Cincinnati, Clemson, Florida State, those kind of schools that will still have a geographical footprint on the East Coast for sure. But hey, we'll see what happens with the
we got another
here.
month until the deadline. So there is always this loose deadline that if people don't make the announcement that they're going here or there before August 15th, then it's not going to happen for another year. So we got about a month to see. Now, deadlines are made to be broken, but we'll see what happens in the next month. Let's move to CFB 25 before we close things out. It is available and being played by those who order the deluxe version of the game. There's a lot of people that we know, a lot of people on our timeline that are posting many clips. Some people may just need to get a Twitch account because they're just, workaday dads posting their football highlights. But listen, it's fun. We get to see kind of what it looks like and see the environment and lane in the game and hear some of the announcing. And even the Virginia Tech Hokies football account put out some clips of how the unis look in the game and so on and so forth. Sam, are you getting this on Friday? Is that the plan?
Yeah, I'm not paying $40 so I can play a video game in the middle of the week. I'm not that desperate. I say
but
that
we don't
as I
besmirch those who are doing it.
I mean, I have a group chat with an entire Google sheet of rules for our online dynasty. Oregon State Beavers, hashtag build the dam, hashtag damn right, hashtag Beaver Believer. I think it is awesome because you're having so many casual fans talk about teams that aren't the big teams. Like people are discovering that Texas State has a really good offense. People are discovering how awesome Appalachian State's field is. People are learning about all of the awesome teams that are out there that might not be Ohio State, Oregon, Florida State, Clemson, whatever. So I think that is something that the sport has really missed over the last decade that the game did bring. I mean, how many people fell in love with Hawaii football when Colt Brennan was out there slinging it and you were building your dynasty on
Timmy
the island?
Chang, man.
Timmy Chang trying to bring back the run and shoot right now. He has a big year ahead of him. I mean, that's one of the things that the game brought to the sport. And I'm really glad that's coming back because I feel like those programs really need some national attention there.
Yeah, I like that aspect of it. And I also think it's very cool for these kids and the fact that their names are on the jerseys. You don't have to upload, you don't have to patch. And I think in 2013, when I got my last NCAA game, I got a patch from Clark so I could get my my names on there.
There it is. Rest in peace.
There's the 2014 with the shoelace on the cover.
But I also got my PS5 controller ready to go.
Yeah,
it's charged up.
Oh, you're a PS5 guy. Okay.
Yeah.
And I have heard some things about our Hokies, and that Tootin is tremendous in this game. Really good in terms of the gameplay. APR is a monster in the gameplay. And we saw Michael Vick on a stream with Tim playing against Tim Tebow as a promotional thing and scoring a touchdown with Jalen Lane, who was supposedly very good in the game. And that is the extra cool aspect of this is these players, their parents, their fathers, whoever get to see their child or themselves playing in this game. And that is just such a surreal, cool thing for these student athletes that were never being compensated properly over the years. And now they are a bit. And this is a cool thing for them.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Many different aspects of this game too. Like the team builder, which is something that I'm going to dive into and create my own team and do all the designs and all that stuff. But like the road to glory modes, the online dynasties, the offline dynasties. I mean, there's so many different aspects. I mean, I just enjoyed just playing the game, just doing two random teams and playing. I mean, that's what makes this game so much fun is they taken the time to honor everybody's team as their favorite team and give them the due respect. I mean, like watching highlight, or watching little videos on Twitter and whatnot. I mean, they got the core cadets in there, and not only that, they have them in the white shirts during the summertime or during the early part of the season when it gets cold. They got the big coats on. Like that little bit of detail, it's like, man, that's really cool. And that's just Virginia Tech. I mean, just think of all the other schools.
The details
out there
are
that
unbelievable.
They just give those small details to, and it's only going to get better.
Right.
Yep.
That's the cool part. I mean, they delayed this game a year, and it shows. They've put a lot of detail in it. Yes, there's a lot of glitches. I saw today that Alabama had the Hokie bird on the sideline, or the select uniform screen had for Ohio State had Michigan uniforms for it. So they're going to work out the bugs, and that's part of the reason why I just decided not to be a beta tester for the first 3 days. I'm not going to pay $30 to be a beta tester. They've already patched the game twice.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
It'll happen even more times between now and Friday. We will all get our fix of college football. I was one of the guys that played the college football revamped game. So even the last year or two, I was still playing, NCAA
really? Okay.
with new uniforms and whatnot. And that community that kept that game alive, I think, was the catalyst for creating this new game. There was still the heartbeat of college football on the PlayStation or on the Xbox, and to see it come back, it's awesome. Like one of my buddies, I'm in a big group chat with a bunch of uniform designers and uniform guys from all over the country, and the guy from West Virginia, he messaged and he said, "I feel like a kid again." He's like, "This is crazy."
No, the nostalgia
I remember playing this game.
The nostalgia is crazy. And I remember teams that I played with on dynasty modes when I was little. Like I had a great dynasty with UCLA when I was a little kid on like NCAA 06. I remember, my Hawaii dynasty was perfect. Like I remember those moments as a kid, and it was so cool and so fun because you actually felt like a coach. And I think now, especially somebody who hasn't played video games in a decade, the updated graphics and gameplay and sounds is ridiculous. I showed and this is a different game, but I showed my dad the preview of Elden Ring, which is basically if you were to take like Game of Thrones level production and make a video game out of it. And he was blown away. He thought he was watching a movie, and it was a gameplay trailer.
Elden Ring is one of the premier ones that everyone loves. Yeah.
It takes up your entire Xbox space, but so I'm telling you, if you haven't played video games and you go out and you get a console for like $300 and you play this game, you're going to be blown away by how realistic it looks.
But the great thing for us, who are in our upper 30s and lower 40s and all age ranges, the great thing is you can pick up this game and you can play it for about 30 to 40 minutes. And if you just want to play one game, you're done. If you want to sit there and play for 6 or 7 hours, you can do that too. Because I guarantee a lot of people today were dragging after playing last night up until 2, 3, 4 in the morning. And they're like, "Oh, I need to go to bed now."
Clark talking about NCAA 25 or CFB 25 just got me fired up.
I'm fired up to hop on the sticks.
Yeah, man. He's like, I want to grab a controller right now.
I'm at peace that I didn't do the 3 days early thing. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna be busy for those days anyway, so it's not a big deal. But I mean, we're all gonna play the hell out of that game. Let's not beat around the bush.
Do you guys ever do the thing where if I remember I used to do this on the old NCAA games, like back in the 90s, where if it's snowing outside, I gotta play as Penn State with like the snow game. Like I gotta mimic the outdoor weather and do that. That was something I used to love doing as a kid. But yeah, dude,
I can't.
That's
one thing
fun.
I want to see is the Army Navy game. I don't know if anybody's put a video up on YouTube about it. I'm sure somebody has. I mean, there's everything, but the Army Navy game, just to see like the details,
what they did with that,
both cores, and
the president. Will the president be in it?
I mean, who knows? I mean, he's public domain, right? So I guess you could have that happen, but like, the neutral site games. I mean, they have the Commonwealth Clash logo in the game when Tech and UVA play. I mean, just little stuff like that.
That's
man. It's just
pretty tight.
I'm sure there's so many details that we will never even see with that game. But and I saw today a guy from, I think, Florida Atlantic, an administrator of Florida Atlantic, had tweeted that there will be 30-day, 60-day, 90-day updates throughout the season. So if teams roll out new uniforms or any of that kind of stuff, so if we see an alternate uniform in Blacksburg at some point, it'll probably be in the game.
We should have talked about that during the
Clark,
uniform segment.
I'll bring it back. I'll circle back. I have no shame in it. Clark, when are we going to see the orange jerseys, man?
I don't even know if that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I do know with the state budget and everything, there is a home, away, and alternate uniform in the budget. Now, whether that happens, I think that they were lucky to be able to get the uniforms in time before the game came out. I know there was a little bit of preparation just in case it didn't happen. So nothing would surprise me, but I mean,
well, they didn't reveal
let's
them
be honest
before
for
the game came out.
Let's be honest for a second. I don't care about alternate uniforms.
I don't either. I'm going to be,
You
the
love
maroon
alternate
jersey
uniforms.
is it. We're talking about alternate uniforms. We got
Clark,
the maroon and white jerseys.
You've got the orange sleeve Adidas behind you.
There's the Hokie Stone right there. I get it. I totally get it. But we're getting the maroon and white uniforms at Virginia
which are
Tech
beautiful,
that we have been wanting to get since
I don't need any more.
I would agree
with that.
2010s.
People
are
do like
the stripes. They're like, we need to go back.
orange.
We need to go back. Finally got it.
People want an orange jersey.
don't-
I'm not
don't
maybe
pay
one of those
attention to
people, but people want them. And
Didn't we
I
hate
think
orange
we're-
jerseys?
But people complain about orange uniforms. That's the most uniform thing that people complain about. They always say, "Oh, we always lose in orange uniforms." Tech has a winning record in orange.
I know
you remember
Tally-
the games
Tally
they
wants some
lose.
orange
You don't
uniforms.
remember the games they win. So look, the maroon and the white jerseys are so perfect. Why do we need an alternate uniform right now? Let's enjoy the ones that have just been released.
We don't, but I think we're getting one. For what it's worth, I think we're going to get an
Surely
alternate this
something
year.
will happen when it comes to alternate uniforms. You've got to stay with the times.
Yeah.
You can't just do one and the other. But man alive. I mean, I wouldn't surprise me to see a different helmet with either one of these jerseys.
Oh,
Plus,
okay.
that's a little bit easier to do. I know that Whit Babcock has talked about wanting to do the Fighting Gobbler on a helmet. He really likes that logo. It's nostalgic. I get it. I think that it would look cool with this uniform set. But man, the maroon and the white, you just can't beat perfection. I'm sorry. Everyone that has put their hands on this project from start to finish, it has been awesome. The uniforms look incredible. I'm ready to see Tech run out of the tunnel against Marshall in that maroon, white, maroon.
You can't do all maroon for Marshall.
Man, just to see those maroon uniforms. And who knows, maybe Vanderbilt, because it's 11 a.m. kickoff, they might want to wear white at home. And Tech might end up wearing maroon in Nashville. Man, can we just enjoy that?
Well, we will enjoy it. And I said on Twitter when they came out, I said, this is the best home and away, meaning just the standard regular uniform, no alternates. Yeah. Best home and away since 2006. That's my opinion. I liked the stripes on the shoulders back in 2010, those ones.
Well, those became an alternate. The white ones with the stripes.
Yeah.
Those were the alternate jersey. They were the throwback.
Exactly.
And that became popular.
They became our regular jersey. Yeah.
So I liked that we could see an alternate white.
The Adibi one you have there without the orange sleeve, those are the 2006 ones. And those ones, this is the best set since those, in my opinion. But Sam, do you have a mystery Hokie for us so we can?
Random
here. We got to close it out.
Yeah, we are. I mean, I think people are good. Clark, first off, thanks for coming on. This has been awesome. I can talk uniforms all day. Random Hokie of the day. So, for Clark, if you don't know, and for the people who don't know, we haven't been as consistent with this. We will get to it and be consistent with it. Random Hokie, I will tell you some stats for those players. It is a player who has played since 2000. I will not tell you the years or the position, but I will give you some stats and a fun fact about that player. I'll help you get it. And they're meant to be hard but gettable. They'll get harder as the season goes on. So this player played at Virginia Tech for 4 years, but really was only a key factor in 3 of them. Over his career, he totaled 131 tackles, 21 and a half sacks, and 34 tackles for loss. So very productive player. Also forced 3 fumbles. This player, their best game, I will also give you a best game. Their best game had a lot of really good games. Best game statistically happened against North Carolina on the road, where this player had 4 tackles for loss and 3 sacks and a forced fumble. This player also in 2014 was 3rd team All ACC. And that year, his defensive end counterpart, because I'm going to guess you can set to their defensive end, was 2nd team All ACC. And both Virginia Tech cornerbacks were 1st team All ACC.
Yeah.
Who is that random Hokie?
So he said 2014,
Yes, it would be 2014.
Well, that's one of the years he played for sure.
but it was an award in 2014.
Yes.
So Kenna Canham would be a guess that I'm not saying that's my guess, but that's someone I'm thinking of. And then on the other side is Daddy Nicholas in some of those years. And then there was another player who was super good for us that played on one of the ends. Do you give your guess first, Clark? Do you have a guess?
Well, I was going to guess Canham,
Okay. All
but
right. And you said
you know,
21 and a half sacks?
For their career, 21 and a half sacks. This was he is a very consistently good player.
I'm going to go a Canham as well.
You are both correct. It is
All
Ken
right.
Canham, number 4 defensive end. One of those like really, I think that was.
it was
Tech
it's
had, like,
weird
a-
seeing because they for years you never saw multiple numbers on the field, so you never saw a defensive guy and an offensive guy have the same number. And Ecanum and David Wilson were both number 4, and it was
And then
really
after
like
that,
what
after
happened.
that was J.C.
And then
Coleman.
after this,
So
JC Coleman was
Coleman,
4 as
yeah.
well. So like it was weird. And then you see multiple numbers. There's like 3 guys that have the same number.
There was
sometimes.
a very short defensive end who played for us. Very short's an exaggeration, not Eli Adams before that, who played for us across from one of those guys on spot duty. And he was really good. And I don't think I'm thinking of Tyrell Wilson. It's like
Jason Wiltz.
No, that was before. That was like
No,
09.
he was
I'm
in the
thinking
late
like
2000s.
it's like Cole, not Cole Nelson, but like something like that. I can't think of his name. And I know you guys know the name, but he was like really good in spot duty. And that's kind of who I was thinking of at first. At first, when you started the question, Sam, I was thinking like Luther Maddie.
I
but
thought Gerald
Luther
Tapp the
played-
way he was talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Luther Maddie played around those years and he was extremely productive and played a lot early in his career. And then had some tendonitis issues in his knee. But he early in his career, he was putting up a lot of TFL. Probably the sack numbers he never would have got to that high.
But Kenny Canham, one of those players who had a really good career at Virginia Tech and got some All ACC honors. I think that was just when the wins weren't piling up as much as Hokie fans were used to, and the defense had a lot of pressure on them because the offense wasn't that good, and we just kind of forgot about it. But that 2014 defense was really good. That's the team that beat Ohio State. And then injury issues happened and season kind of fell off, but then they beat UVA to go to a bowl and then beat Cincinnati in the Military Bowl. So Kenny Canham, random Hokie of the day.
That's a good one. And he during that 2016 season when we did really well, like Ken was a huge reason why, right? Like wasn't he?
Yeah,
part
had
of that
seven and a half
Yeah.
sacks that year, 10 tackles for loss.
10 tackles for loss. And
That's a pretty productive player. Yep.
The guy who I was thinking of, guys, it was J.R. Collins.
Okay, I remember that.
He was a senior in 2013, and he had 11 tackles for loss that year. But he played across from James Gale, so it was a little before that Kenna Canham time. But anyway, all right, that is going to do it for the pod. Clark, thank you so much for being here. Really good perspective as always on
Absolutely,
all the different
fellas.
avenues
Last little
of it.
cheers, Clark.
Yeah, cheers to that.
Sorry, I'm already out. So. Hey, mad props to everybody that put these new uniforms together.
Absolutely.
The equipment staff, the operations staff, the former players that played a part in all of this. Man, it's just they look awesome. If the team plays as well as the uniforms look, where are we going to the national championship game? I mean,
You're not lying.
They're exactly what everyone was hoping for.
Yeah.
And I know former players who got to be part of the reveal on Friday morning after everything had gotten leaked, and everybody was just like, man, these are perfect. This is
and shout outs. The social media team has put up amazing content.
The cool pictures
the all maroon with the maroon background is one of the coolest pictures. That looks so cool.
I love the super zoomed in detail photos, like
Yes.
the tech
Yeah, they
bumper,
just
where
started
you can
putting
just
more of
see
those
the
out today
numbers.
of
And
the details.
the photographs are freaking off the chain. I mean, it's so cool. And the descriptions that were put out, I think it was on Saturday, about the small details, about the white stripe that is the new part, the Hokies on the pants, the details of the numbers, prosum on the collar, that kind of stuff. It really goes to show how much detail has been put into these, and they look awesome. I mean, that is tech right there. That is the tech look, and I'm fired up for football season this year. It's going to be a good year.
Yeah, man. Well, we're gonna see Clark in Nashville, Tin Roof on Friday night.
Going
We're
to Nashville this weekend, so
Yeah,
we will
he's gonna
go
scope
check
out the
out
situation.
scouting
Send
out
us-
Tin Roof.
Send us a
I mean, it
little
is in the
video,
heart
Clark.
of Broadway.
Can you
So
send us a video of either having a beer or Tin Roof or something?
yeah,
while you're there?
Izzy and I are gonna go downtown and check it out a little bit. So yes, we will definitely do a cheers when we go downtown this weekend in
Nice.
Nashville.
And we are also thinking about doing, let me take this off real quick. Thinking about doing maybe a little preseason pod show in Richmond in the middle of August. Still working out the details. Maybe it'll turn into a little preseason party. Who knows? But hitting up a brewery, maybe me and Sam will get together, do a little chat. It could be fun. Keep that in mind. Make sure you're subscribed on the YouTube channel, to the Sons of Saturday channel, to both the Too Deep and Sons of Saturday channel on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And make sure to rate, review, and subscribe the pod. We always appreciate likes, thumbs up, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, go Hokies.
Go Hokies.